to another episode of Well-Adjusted Mama. I'm your host, Dr. Laura Brayton, and today's guest is the Hormone Whisperer, the very own Alisa Vitti. She's an integrative nutritionist, best-selling author of Woman Code, creator of the Woman Code system, and the founder of FlowLiving.com, a virtual health center that supports women's hormonal and reproductive health. A graduate of Johns Hopkins University and the Institute for Integrative Nutrition, Alisa has been featured on The Dr. Oz Show, has a web series on Lifetime, and has been a regular contributor for CBS, Fox, Shape, Woman's Health, and Mind Body Green, as well as the Huffington Post. She is also the Hormone Whisperer for Yahoo Health and serves on their advisory board. She is presented at TEDx, talks at Google, Summit Series Outside, Hay House, WIE Symposium, and She Summit. You can follow her on Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, and Instagram. Welcome, Alisa, to the call. I'm so excited to have you on our show today.
So happy to be here, Laura.
So you are called the Hormone Whisperer, and it's really exciting to have you just share your wisdom and your passion for women's hormone and reproductive health. So I'd like to start off with kind of learning a little bit more about you and how that's become your passion, you know, in supporting women and understanding their cycles and the way their bodies work.
Well, I mean, I think I should have just seen it coming because in 6th grade, after we learned about the period for the first time, I started a period club, and then I just think I've been doing that ever since.
That's great, a period club.
More directly, it really was my own experience with my cycles and its issues that led me to pursue, functional nutrition as it applies to hormone balancing. But I mean, I was dealing with, hormonal imbalance basically all throughout puberty, but of course, no one was picking up on that in that way. It's like, oh, your cycle's late, or, it's normal to have so much irregularity. But then by the time, I was about 20, my weight had skyrocketed up to over 200 pounds. I was covered face, chest, and back in really severe cystic acne. I mean, to the point where, it would take me about a half an hour in the morning. It's what I would call spackling, to cover it up to a degree that I felt, not horrible about walking out of the apartment. And, of course, I wasn't getting my period at all. And, just the sort of insomnia, depression, anxiety, fatigue, random food cravings. I just had the whole gamut of symptoms. And I really felt like a prisoner in my body, and no one knew what was wrong with me. I was going from doctor to doctor, and, they were just sort of blankly staring at me saying, well, I think just go on the pill, and it'll take care of it. And lucky for me, I was a student at Johns Hopkins University, and was planning to become an OBGYN at that time, and was in the medical library one of my insomniacal nights and found some research on a condition at that time referred to as Stein-Leventhal disease, and which is now called polycystic ovarian syndrome, which of course we now do a much better job of diagnosing. But almost 20 years ago, it was not as commonly diagnosed. The average lag time between symptoms starting and a diagnosis was about 7 years, which was what was the case in my case. And, I read sort of the profile of a person with this condition, and it was just, all the bells were ringing. This was me to a T. And I was so, on the one hand, excited because I said, oh gosh, now we know, what it is. But on the other hand, I was, of course, even more disconcerted because I wasn't yet sure what all the implications were. So I went to my gynecologist the next day and had her finally do the correct testing to see my ovaries and what was going on. And in fact, we did confirm my diagnosis, and I said, so now what? What can we do? Mm-hmm. And she said, we really can't do much. We can put you on the pill, but the prognosis is, continuation of obesity, propensity for diabetes, heart disease, likelihood that you will never be able to get pregnant without, alternative, assisted reproductive technology like IVF, and of course increased risk for cancer. And I was sitting in her office and I was 21. Mm-hmm. And that was sort of the future that she was painting for me. And I thought, that is just not going to be my future.
Yeah.
So I said, thank you, but no thank you. And I walked out of there without a clue as to how I was going to get better, but just, really motivated to get better, obviously. And that was the beginning of, my journey into really understanding how we can manipulate the body using food therapy. And this, 20 years ago was a really nascent concept. Functional medicine is a much more pervasive conversation these days. But 20 years ago, I was looking at the research coming out of the Human Genome Project and epigenetics, which is a brand new discovery that you can manipulate gene expression using food and lifestyle factors. And I thought, well, of course we could apply that to organ systems. And of course the endocrine system being one of the most interconnected organ systems we have, just, seemed to me like a great place to begin the work. And so I did a lot of experimentation, and the protocol that we use at Slow Living was born out of that period of research and trial and error, and me being my own guinea pig. And when I finally figured out the right sequence of events, my body just recovered pretty rapidly. The 60 pounds came off of me without, dieting, so to speak. My period came back. I always love saying that how many years I've been menstruating, because for the first decade of, let's say 12 to 22, that first decade of pubescence, I wasn't menstruating, right? So starting at 22 to have had my period come back and be menstruating and ovulating every month ever since, is like, I don't know, I celebrate it. It's like I always mark the occasion, the annual, yes, still menstruating, hooray. Just, it was a really extraordinary thing to witness the body really make a full recovery. My skin cleared up. It's still shocking to me when people come up to me and say, oh my God, your skin. So I'm like, really? I'm not still the girl with all the acne, but it's true, I'm not. And then just more recently, at 37, I was able to, get pregnant naturally and conceive my first child, which, I had a little over a year ago. And, even watching my body recover from that has been an amazing process, just to again, using a pro-hormonal food approach, my body was able to restore itself hormonally very quickly postpartum. And I've been breastfeeding at this advanced maternal age for 15 months without any issue. And so to me, it's an extraordinary gift to give oneself as a woman the practice of feeding and caring for this unique female system that we have, because it pays back huge dividends, not just in what you can do with your body, but just how useful and energetic and clear you feel, and are able to use that energy in directing it into other areas of your life that go beyond health. Mm-hmm. So that's why I'm so passionate.
Well, that is a great answer. And I mean, it makes perfect sense. You had that personal experience, and you were, determined to not, allow that landscape that was painted for you by your doctor to come into reality, which I think is so awesome. So I'm hoping this gives a lot of hope to women that are listening that perhaps have a PCOS diagnosis, or who are over 35 wanting to start a family and are having any fears or concerns about what's possible for them, because you can definitely change the genetics through lifestyle, and that's what epigenetics means. So let's talk a little bit more about what can be done to make these shifts in lifestyle. I know you wrote a book called Woman Code, and you have a program called the Woman Code System. Can you elaborate on what that entails?
Sure. Well, the book, it was really I just felt like there needed to be a navigational tool for this elegantly complex system that we have, our hormonal system for women who are menstruating and in the reproductive years, to really say, okay, here's what's happening, each week of your cycle, and here's how to eat according to those phases so that you can optimize the hormonal ratios in each of those 4 phases. Oftentimes we know about, we might be ovulating or menstruating, but that's the sort of extent of what we know about our cycle. And I wanted to, expound upon all the different facets of our neurobiochemistry, our, physiological changes, the things that you can look at and observe in your body with predictability so that we could build a better relationship with our bodies. I mean, you know how it goes, Laura, right? We have symptoms that come up, we have bloating, we have PMS, we have all these things, and we kind of have this distrust/hate relationship with our body. I'm not even going to say it's a love-hate relationship, it's like sort of mostly negative. And it, I think, comes from the fact that we just don't know what's going on and we think it's all random. And so I wanted to sort of map it out for women and also give them a path to do a little bit of cleanup. There's 2 parts to the flow protocol. The first part is what I like to call the hormonal reset cleanup part, where we just focus in on the foods that really support the core functionality of the endocrine system, like blood sugar stability and adrenals and gut microbiome, as well as the pathways of elimination. And then, we go into this what I call cycle syncing phase. Once you've done the cleanup, then you really want to eat for ongoing optimization, which is this, eating for your flow, as we talk about, eating different foods within the different phases. And so that's really the system are about. The online program really takes you step by step through that process in depth, with downloads and recipes and shopping lists and, all the resources you could possibly need, but also a thorough education, in how your endocrine system functions, in over 22 hours of online content, videos, the workbooks. I mean, it's just a very comprehensive. You will not leave that program without a full education on your hormonal system, how it works, how you can observe it in real time, how you can respond in real time with different foods. So, for example, the holidays were just here, right? Mm-hmm. So, and this is a time where we get tons of emails from women saying, "Oh my gosh, my PMS is like the worst it's ever been."
Right. Sure.
And I say, okay, great. So what happened the month prior to, to cause this present cycle to be dysfunctional, right? Because it has its roots in the previous cycle. And of course, in December, what are we doing? We're drinking more, we're out later, we're eating more erratically, we're having more sugar, we're having more inflammatory foods, and all of those things will shift the building blocks in the system that are making hormones, breaking hormones down, and making it less functional, right, optimally functional. And so you will have very easily, more gnarly PMS, more period problems. And, flow living doesn't just treat PCOS. We treat women with, any sort of cycle irregularity, PMS, PMDD, fibroids, endometriosis, infertility, the transition around perimenopause, for example, where the cycle becomes irregular and we're having these sort of hot flashes and all that. How do we navigate that? So this whole, from the very first period to the very last is really what we're specialists in, and really making it as symptom-free as possible. So that's what the book does, and the online program. And one of the fun things I got to do around the publication of the book was go on the Dr. Oz show and make a little TV history, which I didn't realize I was doing until after the fact, but I went on and simulated menstrual blood on national television, which I guess had never been done before. And I wanted to show, that when you look at the color of your bleed every month and the texture, it gives you such valuable information about what's happening with your hormones. And we can look at different colors. For example, if you have, I was using coon juice to simulate this sort of brownish staining that can happen when progesterone levels are low. That's important information to know if you're trying to get pregnant, because progesterone is the key hormone in maintaining a pregnancy. So if you have cycles leading up to trying to conceive that have this brown staining at any part of it, and your cycle's a little bit delayed, then you know where to do the work with food to boost progesterone levels. Or alternatively, if your cycle, we use, I think it was frozen blueberries that we thawed out. If it's like that dark purple color with some clots, right? And it looks that's a great indication for you that your estrogen levels are too high. Your body's not doing an adequate job of breaking estrogen down. You're not eating foods that are helping you eliminate that estrogen and metabolize it effectively. So that's where your work is with food, right? So you can use your cycle every month looking even if you were to just look at what the quality of your bleeding is, you could really start to do a lot of proactive work on improving your diet to help your cycle. And you can see changes within a month, from one cycle to the next. If you change your diet consistently that month, your cycle could be completely different the following month. And we get results for women using the system online, within 3 months at the most, of changing their diet. They can, stop having the symptoms of PCOS or shrink fibroids or get rid of PMS, to bring their cycle back when they've been missing periods for random reasons. All of these things are very easily doable with the body once you unlock that code of, how to eat to balance your hormones.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, this is just, I think, really great news for women who are maybe not hearing that from their OBGYN and they're not really sure of what to do. They're having all these different symptoms or disorders or diagnoses. And the solution, even today, for a lot of women is take the birth control pill. And I have a lot of concerns about using that, just carte blanche, every woman, be on the birth, it's concerning because it does impact our hormone levels. And actually maybe you could, if you're open to speaking a little more on that, that would be great. Because I think it's important for women to be aware that, when you do something like the birth control pill, or if you're having painful periods and you're taking, Advil every month, things like that, this is all about suppressing symptoms. It's not addressing the root cause. And that's what I love about the Flow Living program is that you actually can learn your body, learn where the imbalances are, and actually be empowered to make a change through your diet, which is so simple, and actually very quickly transform the quality of your hormones balance and your periods. And this is something that can happen very quickly because the body is so amazing at healing itself. So this does not even have to take a long period of time.
Absolutely, and that's what our bodies are designed to do, to restore, to seek homeostasis. And so, I agree. It can happen really quickly. It just seems like because of the conditioning we receive with, sort of traditional Western medicine that it's just not possible. But, it really is. It really, truly is. When we look at functional medicine, it's just a whole new world. And it's so exciting now. I've been doing this for 15 years, but the research that's come out in the past 2 years has just been extraordinary around the microbiome and functional nutrition and what's possible, the nuances of what we can do with micronutrient therapy in the body is just extraordinary. And to have the clinical research to back it up now is just so valuable for all of us, because now it's no longer just, do you agree in theory with the idea of a more natural, functional-based approach? Now you can just look at the hard science, which is
the science.
It's just there. And so what's the point of denying it? The body works this way. We know clinically that it responds in certain ways to certain stimuli. Let's work with that. So, there's so many things to talk about. First, I'll say the rhetoric that you're given at your typical GYN visit, which is there's nothing to be done except to go on the pill, is, hugely, what's the word? It's just missing this whole other area of what's emerging now in the scientific community around functional medicine. So I think we have to just appreciate that the functional approach has not made it universally into standard medical school training. And so that's why you're not having your doctor have that conversation with you. It does not mean that your doctors are bad people. They're great people who do great work.
Right.
They just haven't received this training. And so, of course, they're not going to say something that they're not aware of, right? So you can't expect them to have that conversation with you unless they are specifically a functionally trained doctor, which hopefully going forward will become a more universal, integrated part of the medical school education. So that's the first thing. The second thing is the pill. The pill. Here's the thing. The pill is such an important advance for women. Our liberation has been absolutely at the hands of being able to control our reproductive capacity. So I applaud the fact that we have this tool in our toolkit. My issue with it is that it is now being used in a way that it was never intended to be used. It was originally designed for women who were already finished having their kids, married women who, were not wanting to have their sixth or seventh baby and have their uteruses fall out of their pelvic basin from, the trials of labor and multiple pregnancies. And of course, naturally, it started moving into women who were not wanting to have children at all, and that's fine. But we're now at a place where we're using it as hormone replacement therapy for teenage girls as young as 13, who have some cramps and some acne and just don't want to deal with it, so to speak. And then we're having these girls stay on the pill for 10, 20 years before they go off to make a baby. And the issue is that if you go on the pill, and even if you go on it later, let's say you go on in your 20s, but you go on because you're having major problems with your cycle, that's the issue. Using the synthetic hormone replacement to quote-unquote fix your period problems doesn't actually fix them. It masks the symptoms, and it keeps your body in a state of hormonally dysfunctional suspended animation. So when you come off of the pill, whatever was wrong with your hormonal system will still be wrong with it and will likely be more deeply embedded in the body because it's had longer to, because the symptoms aren't there nagging at you, you're continuing to do the things that are exacerbating your condition with your diet and your lifestyle. And so when you go off the pill, the symptoms tend to be worse and more difficult to address. So I think it's just an important thing to recognize that, listen, go use the pill. If you have no cycle issues, your period is fine, and you can go on and off the pill without symptoms, go for it. If that's your preferred method of birth control, have at it. But if you're someone like me, who has hormonal sensitivity and hormonal imbalance, then using the pill as the primary form of treatment is a bad idea, in my experience, as the first place to go. You can instead think about it as a two-stage process, right? Where you first use a protocol like mine, it's the Flow Living protocol, to restore your hormonal balance. And then once you're healthy, consider, how you could maybe potentially go back on the pill for prophylaxis. But oftentimes women, once they've gotten themselves balanced with such a hard-earned, lifestyle and dietary change that they don't want to take synthetic hormones. They want to do something more natural, and so they'll use the more, standard barrier methods like a diaphragm or the sponge or condoms to prevent pregnancy, which, by the way, do a lot more than the pill in terms of protecting you against diseases that can compromise your fertility. So in any event, whether you're on the pill or not, you also have to be using condoms if you're serious about taking care of your cervical health, and your, the vaginal microbiome and all of that. The last thing I'll say about the pill is that I had my own experience on the pill. After about a year of, in that first year of having had my diagnosis and, apprenticing myself to every type of practitioner I could get my hands on and trying all sorts of different things. I remember one naturopath had me on a carrot juice candida cleanse, to the point where I was a very dedicated researcher. So I drank that carrot juice, Laura, and I turned orange. I drank it for so long because I still wasn't getting any results. But after about a year of that and still seeing no progress with all of these various, again, this is a long time ago, where we just didn't have the understanding of functional nutrition that we have today. No one was giving me any improvement. And so I said, okay, well, let me try the pill. I was desperate, So I went on the pill for 10 days. And on the 10th day, I woke up with a sort of blurry vision. I've been having difficulty with my cardiovascular. I was avidly exercising to try to lose weight at that time, and I remember being on the Stairmaster being like, I'm having a hard time, talking and exercising for a few days leading up to the episode, and then that 10th morning I woke up, couldn't see out of my left eye all of a sudden, just lost vision in my left eye, and then about, terrified, walked outside thinking maybe some fresh air will help. Didn't know what to do. And walked outside, and then the cold air brought some watery vision, fluttering back to the left eye, but then I was, jammed up on the right side of my brain with a pretty severe ocular migraine. And so I thought, all right, and I was having some, chest pain and heart stuff, and I said, okay, I'm going to take myself to the ER. And so, they asked what medications I was on. I let them know I was on the pill. We did an EKG. We did all sorts of things. And they're like, oh yeah, you can never be on the pill again. You had a cardiac episode with an ocular migraine. Clearly there's cardiovascular, you're having a cardiovascular response to these synthetic hormones. And so it's just not safe for you to be on synthetic hormones. And so that was my 10-day experience with the pill. And it's really important to share that because there are more and more parents of girls who have died from taking the pill coming out these days talking about, they wish they had known that there are risks associated with synthetic hormone replacement for younger girls and,
and older women as well.
And you're absolutely right. I remember having to sign a document when I decided to try the pill that, read, all sorts of things, side effects, and at the end may cause death. And I had to read all of that and sign it before they, gave me the prescription. Mm. And I don't know if that's still happening. But I think, what I'm advocating for in this conversation around the pill is visibility into all the possible repercussions and all the possible alternatives. And to really understand as the patient how to assess what choice is the right choice for you. And for me, it comes down to one thing. Do you have a hormonal imbalance? If yes, then don't take the pill as your form of therapy. If you don't have a hormonal imbalance and you just want to prevent pregnancy, then take it. That's fine.
And then maybe you'll create a hormonal imbalance.
Well, there are women who've taken, hormonal IUDs that then, go on to have continuous breakthrough bleeding during sex. I mean, yeah, there are repercussions to taking any sort of medication, but, I think it's important to recognize that, we just need to have more transparency into all the options and all the side effects before we make these huge life-changing, trajectory-changing, choices around our health care.
Yeah, especially when we're talking like millions of girls and women that are on the pill, even, today.
Yeah.
It's a large chunk of our population.
I mean, and, ultimately too, as someone who has made it her life's work to not only study the menstrual cycle and its hormones, but also, live I live the protocol, right? I live in the flow, as we say, at Flow Living. And what that means to me is that I'm constantly, orienting my choices around playing to the strengths of what's happening in my cycle at any given time. And one of the things that, the biggest thing for me is it's not just about, not having symptoms. When you get synchronized with your cycle, when you balance your hormones, and when you're doing that in a drug-free way, like not using synthetic hormones to have your cycle balanced, you actually get access to such enormous gifts from a brain chemistry standpoint, that it's just extraordinary. What we've been taught to think of as a liability, aka our hormones and our fluctuating cycle, is actually a huge asset of strength, creativity, power, and focus. And to me, taking the pill, because of what the pill does, the hormones in the pill shut off the majority of this process, by tricking your body into thinking that it's pregnant hormonally, you're missing out on this whole, brain chemistry, opportunity for you to be the most, successful, creative, productive, communicative version of yourself. And to me, that's just, I think that's priceless to be able to have access to that. It's allowed me to build, this organization. This Slow Living, is a virtual women's health center, first of its kind, for women in their reproductive years. And we're taking care of women in 216 countries. The book that I wrote 3 years ago, is, it's running buddies with taking charge of your fertility and women's bodies and wisdom. And, I'm honored that the book, Woman Code, has been in the top 50, best-selling women's health book of all time since it's been published. I've had a baby. I run my team. I do all these things. I take care of myself. I cook 3 meals a day for my daughter. I do yoga. I do all these things. How do I do all of this? I'm on the board of a couple of, health tech startups. I'm building new programs for Slow Living. We've got a lot of fun things that are launching this year. How do I do all of this? I do all of this. So I have a husband who I'm in a good relationship with. All these things. How do I do all of that, and not burn out, is really the question. And the answer for me is there's only one way I'm aware of that is possible. And that is for me to be planning according to my cycle. My marriage is cycle synced. An article that I published recently about the best time of day to have sex based on our hormonal, interactions, both, in a heterosexual couple, just went viral, recently. Because, it's just, for me, it's like second nature. My husband could teach these classes, when's the best time in your relationship to have certain kinds of sex or certain kinds of dates? He knows which time of the month he should be suggesting we go out with friends versus stay home and, do something more like cuddly, like a movie in or cooking or, he knows when to plan those things based on my cycle. We cycle sync our marriage. We cycle sync our, domestic stuff. I cycle sync my business. How do I, when do I have planning meetings versus when do I have, time to complete projects? And this is a great joy for me to talk about beyond the fixing of the symptoms, which is so easy because, as you've said, Laura, the body is designed to heal. So it's really just unlocking that code. That's why I call the book Woman Code, because it's really, okay, there's an actual way to do this that's very predictable and very straightforward. You just have to tap into that code and access it. And once you get better, now what? We women are so extraordinary. And once you have all of your energy back and your mental focus back and your joy back, what will you channel your life force and your creative vitality into? Right? Is the more important question. And in order for you to protect that, creative potential, you want to create your lifestyle in such a way that really supports these hormonal fluctuations. And so I'm really honored that I get to teach this cycle thinking concept in corporations like Google and Zappos and other financial institutions and teach women, how they can use this in their business environment to be more productive, effective with the least amount of stress on our bodies, because that's the name of the game, right? Being able to do more with less harm to our system. So,
I love this.
There's so much good to get out of your body as a woman if you just, start to partner with her. And the most important relationship that you're going to have in your life is the one with yourself. And yourself, your soul, your spirit, your creative force is being, carried around in this beautiful container of your body that has this amazing hormonal matrix that it operates in. And it's like once you're just made aware of that, it's like, oh my God, of course I'm going to organize myself around that hormonal matrix because it just is the most logical thing to do. And I get that at once, it's like, wow, how did I not know that? But also, why haven't I been told that before? And I hear that all the time. And, you know, whatever reasons it has been, is irrelevant. You know, I don't know. I don't know about you, Laura, but the very first time I picked up my very first biology textbook, I was in, I don't know, seventh grade. I remember my biology teacher, Dr. Bing Boucher, I loved him. We got to the part about human reproduction after, you know, going through botany and all the requisite cellular structures, and finally get to human reproduction. And of course, we read about the male part first, and, you know, the testes being the powerhouse of reproduction, 10 million sperm are produced every so hours, you know, very powerful language. And then we get to menstruation. And I was thunderstruck at how old are we in seventh grade? 12, 13? I remember being like hit square between the eyes and in the chest with this, like, wow, this language is so yucky. You know, just, the period, you know, a woman's cycle, if she conceives, great, in this, you know, the magic of life, and then if she doesn't, you know, the lining of the uterus is shed, it's cast out, it's just this negative language. I just remember this very distinct difference between how they talked about, you know, the sperm production versus our cyclical, you know, function. And I thought, that is weird. I just remember thinking to myself as a 12-year-old, like, why are we being so mean? What is that all about? And I bring it up because it just reminds me of sort of these subtle ways in which we're programmed to see our bodies as less than or, dysfunctional or a liability or something that is messy and unpredictable and scary and bad.
Almost shameful too, actually.
Oh gosh. But you know, what's been so great is 2015 was being heralded as the year of the period, which, you know, of course for me is like the best thing ever because we had that woman in London run the marathon without a pad, and so she bled all through her spandex during the marathon, which wasn't even that bloody, mind you, but it was great to see it. And that girl on Pinterest posted a picture of herself, and everybody's just like, why are we so, I love these millennials because they're like, why are people so grossed out by this? We're just bleeding. It's not a big deal. I'm like, absolutely. Amen. So, you know, I love this, younger generation because they are kind of just like, what's the issue here? And from that point of view, I think there can be a lot of cultural healing around this taboo. It isn't shameful. There's nothing. It's just a bodily function. It's just a bodily fluid. And we should know about it. We should take care of it. We should optimize ourselves. And I think, you know, that coupled with this, trend in, we'll call it biohacking, you know, my friend Dave Asprey and his sort of like, bulletproof, you know, biohacking lifestyle, I think is really exciting because the opportunity for women to reclaim the potency of their biology. You know, we are the more powerful sex, if I can be so bold as to say, from our corpus callosum being bigger to our immune systems being more robust to our
pain threshold.
Our pain threshold being stronger, our nutrient absorption being more efficient. Because we are the ones that make the tiny humans. All of these things are by design. We are genetically, more hardier than our male counterparts, and yet we're being spun a story that's the opposite. And so I think by diving into the science and leaning into the truth of our biochemistry, we can reclaim a sense of pride and a better relationship with our bodies that's proactive, that's on purpose, and that is positive.
Well said. I think that's just so powerful. And, you know, I think what, you know, is interesting is when I heard you speak, at a functional forum, recently, you were just mentioning how, you know, women, regarding, education regarding reproductive health, we get it, like you said, 6th, 7th grade, and then that's it. Like, it's just like nothing. And for a lot of women, it just does create such negative there's so much negativity out there regarding just body image, and then throw in, a period on top of that, and PMS and acne and all the other hormonal symptoms that can occur. And I think what I also love is that you're connecting the dots here. You're talking about, okay, let's find the root cause of why you're having this endocrine dysfunction, and you can correct this yourself, at home. You don't need a prescription.
Right.
And then on top of that, once it's corrected, you're not only going to not have these PMS and nagging or symptoms and whatever, right, all the other stuff that goes along with that, but you're going to be more powerful in your feminine energy. And how will that impact your creativity, your success, your, ability to run your own business? All of that is really elevated. And I think that's just so exciting for women to hear, that this isn't even beyond just the physical symptoms, right? This is actually untapping a deeper energetic level of living.
Well, that's exactly it. That the through line is that we become more of ourselves through our bodies and through this for me, it's like a yoga practice, the yoga practice meaning sort of daily service to the body, right? Through my daily service to my hormonal system, I'm able to be more myself, more in every sense, not just more my happy self and my well-balanced self, but more of my creative potentiate self. And so, however you can start to build that relationship with your body, is so worth it. And so from that viewpoint, we could even look at our symptoms as the invitation, right? The invitation to that relationship. There's a way in which you've been living that is forcing your body to be less than what it's meant to be, right? You're eating in ways that suppress hormonal balance. You're living in ways that suppress hormonal optimization. That should be, and you're doing that because, again, like you were saying, we're not given that education at any time, because the education we're given in 6th and 7th grade is absolutely not, a functional nutrition approach to our hormones. But to see your PMS as an opportunity for you to have that entry point into this new way of living in relationship with your body and in a way to be the more powerful version of yourself changes even the emotions that you have attached to it, right? So your PMS is not this evil thing to be done away with. It's like, okay, all right, honey, we've got some PMS. What's going on? Honey being you in your body, right? What can we do, sweetheart? What can I do for you? What do you need? Tell me what you need, right? That's really the energy, the relationship is what, and honestly, when I tap into like how me and my body jive with each other, that's the energy. It's like, all right, what do you need? What are you telling me that I should be doing? It's just very loving, sweet, playful, kind of like, sister, friend, mama, baby, mama, child kind of energy of, what do you need? What can I do for you? It's my pleasure. Oh, what do you need? Some sleep? Let's go do that. Or what do you need? Some buckwheat? Let's have some of that. You need some coconut oil? Let's do that. Like, you need to go outside? Let's do, what do you need? It's my pleasure to do it, because once I give myself what I need, I find myself having inspirational thoughts about, things that I want to do with the business, or I have brainstorms about, I could write this article, or I have the joyful, open heart energy to bring good, loving, nurturing energy to my daughter and my husband, my friends. Like, the gifts are enormous when you serve yourself first.
Mm-hmm. Yes, amen. I think that's just so important for women to hear. We take care of everyone around us, and we can get so depleted, and it really will serve everyone better by taking care of yourself first. And like you said, really having a loving relationship with your body. And when there are symptoms, not, rejecting that organ or rejecting, what's happening, or being angry. It's just like, okay, this is an opportunity to make a change. And as humans, we move towards pleasure and away from pain. So if we are experiencing some sort of pain, then it's an opportunity to do something different instead of just want to suppress and turn off and look away. And I think that is so valuable to, because our bodies really are here to serve us, and they are deserve a lot of respect. And it's just about listening, really having that intuitive listening of what our bodies need. And when we're living with at our feminine core, we're able to, like you mentioned, as a woman, being in our feminine, we're able to really be so powerful with the creativity aspect, right? That is very much a feminine quality. And creation as well is very much a feminine quality. So these are all going to be elevated when we're practicing that loving relationship with our bodies.
Absolutely. And I think this world, especially now, needs women fully turned on and tapped into this individual power of their creative, creation-based energy to be able to create something from nothing is what we're talking about. We're not talking about arts and crafts. We're talking about conceiving of an idea that might be a solution to a problem and bringing it into physical form. That's what we're talking about in terms of creativity and the feminine. I think the world needs every single woman on the planet to be doing that right now to solve some of the issues that we have at hand. So for me, this is not just a health conversation or a personal power conversation. It's a global family conversation as well. And I do think that we're more interconnected now than ever before. And I think that I'd like to agree with the Dalai Lama that the world will be saved by women. And I think the way that women are going to have access to that, potential is through really getting into this alignment with what's right for themselves and their health and their spirit.
Yeah. That's right. Beautiful. Well said. So, Alisa, if a woman's wanting to learn more about your programs and this information, where can they find you online? And also, I think you have a free 4-day hormone detox offer that you also want to let women know about.
Oh, yeah, sure. Well, the best place to go is to the website, flowliving.com, and sign up for the 4-day detox, which is an excerpt from my book, Woman Code. So I wanted everyone to have it because it's just extraordinary, the results it gets for people. So, this is a giant ebook that you're getting of the 4-day detox. And when you download that, you'll be subscribed to our newsletter, which, is picked up by Yahoo Health and Mind Body Green and all sorts of big publications. So you definitely want to get subscribed and get in on all the information that we're presenting weekly. And that's the best place to start. We do monthly webinars on various subjects where I'm teaching you about, some of the recent ones like, how to deal with your PCOS naturally, how to get pregnant, things like that, all from a functional nutrition point of view, tips and tools and foods you should be eating to achieve these results. So those are also free, and you can register for those once a month. The best way to find out about those is on our Facebook page, which is just at Flow Living. And connect with us on the news book and start getting in some of this information. And of course, if you are ready to really fix your period and fix your fertility or fix your perimenopausal journey, we have 3 different programs on the website that address each of those specific issues, and you can check those out on the Flow Living website. Click on Start Here, and you'll be able to select which of the areas you need support with. Those are the best ways to get in touch with us. So of course, you can always email us directly through the website as well with your questions. The whole team is here to serve your ovaries and your well-being. So if you've got anything you need, just let us know. We're happy to help you. Yeah.
And I think that's what's also really cool is, this is accessible to women living anywhere in the world. So This is, everything you need is all available through the website. all this wonderful content.
You know, God bless the internet. I think it's the most feminine energy-based thing we've got, right? It's all about community and connection and communication of ideas, and it really allows women to have access to information in ways that I think are really life-changing. So yeah, I'm really thrilled to be a virtual Women's Hormone Health Center because of the fact that we are reaching women in, I can't believe there are that many countries.
Right. It's a lot.
You know, there's obviously more countries than that, but I'm really thrilled that, you know, women as far away as Singapore and Australia and, you know, everywhere in between are getting back in their flow, because this information needs to be accessible to every woman. And of course, stay tuned. I'm really hoping someday to be teaching your daughter's sex ed class in junior high. Oh, you know, at some point, that's a dream of mine. I feel like that will be a full circle moment for me, don't you think, Laura?
Yes, totally. I mean, I already can see you on the screen. And you'll say something about when I was sitting in that chair.
Oh my goodness. I love dazzling people with their biology, because I think it's the easiest way to get young girls to think about, wow, you know, my body is really cool. So, you know, I'm happy to geek out and get more young girls thinking about the positive aspects of their period if I have to. But yeah, so, you know, Flow Living, check us out if you need any support. We are here anywhere in the world for your hormonal needs, and it's a dream come true of mine to be able to do that, because I remember wishing that there was something like that for me when I was 20 and suffering, and so I made a little promise to myself that if I could get better, you know, naturally, that I would go ahead and build something like this. So, ta-da! And it's been really such a privilege to serve so many women and to help so many women become mothers, and you know, it's just a joyful kind of work that I get to do.
Yeah, it's amazing, and I'm just so once again so grateful that you took the time out to come on the show today and share your wisdom and passion for women and our bodies. So thanks again.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.